I want to know who we are and where we came from. Who is humanity? Were we created by God? Were we simply an explosion of star matter? Or were we some kind of experiment in an alternate reality, or perhaps a simulated reality? Or, as many of our viewers believe, an alien descendancy? I want to take a look at all of this when I review our ancient history to see if there are clues and evidences that haven't yet been found, or perhaps aren't being discussed, that may indicate that our history is full of contact stories. And please remember to hit the like button and the notification bell when you subscribe and join the conversation that is Shed Show Talk. My name is Beth, and let's get into the mystery that is the Göbekli Tepe. You just heard the voice of an archaeologist say that the origins of Göbekli Tepe is non-human, or potentially not from this world. That is explosive, but the information doesn't just stop being explosive there. There's so much to dig into this. Right now you're looking at a picture which is allegedly of the hill location where underneath buried was the Göbekli Tepe. And what's interesting about this stone circle, well, there's many things that are interesting. Obviously, you just heard Klaus say there's mystery builders. No one knows who built this structure. And in fact, the builders were not just a mystery. There's no commonalities in terms of the structure around the stone circle. Typically, when you have these megalithic stone structures, there's either a community or some kind of connection to the people around it, or at least perhaps we know about some of the civilizations who existed during that time. But the mystery builders of the Göbekli Tepe are simply unknown. They don't have a name. They don't have an identity. All they have left is a sacred circle of stones that they carefully buried after thousands of years of use. Let's hear what Linda Moulton Howe has to say about the Göbekli Tepe, because what she has to say is really quite eye-opening.
But adding to the mystery of the 12,000-year-old, very sophisticated construction is that so far, Dr. Schmidt has found no evidence that people permanently resided here. There are no tools, there are no cooking utensils, there's nothing except these incredibly heavy and strange and elegant pillars.
Can you think of any structure around the world where people would be organized enough to create a megalithic structure, utilize it in relative isolation for thousands of years, and then scrub it from any identifiers of tools or cooking implements or any of those strategies, and then cover it with dirt? Can you think of any other structure like that? I personally can't, but I'll continue to do some digging. There is clearly a strong mystery as to who these people were, the level of intelligence they had, and where they got that intelligence. There's really four main categories of thinking about our origins right now. The first is that it's simply a big bang, a chemical, mechanical, biological oops that created the universe and all life in it. Then there are people who believe there's intelligence in the supernatural, who created it by a creative design. There's also a group of people who believe that it is paranormal, that aliens were in some kind of alien simulation or alien offspring on this planet. And then there's the fourth group of people who say, I really don't know, but I'm totally fascinated. And so you have these different schools of thought, but all of those schools of thought would still look at Göbekli Tepe and say something mysterious and marvelous is happening right here, because we have evidence of a high intelligence organized society that predates any records we have for societies like that. They had the ability to create and leave something permanent for us without leaving any clear identifying markers to tell us who they were. So how did they get the mathematics and the physics and the spiritual aptitude to create a sacred stone site like this and then simply vanish? Where did they go? In fact, where did they come from? Now, as you'll hear in this next brief clip, just as I get ready for the next section, you'll hear the archaeologist reiterate his point again about the possible mysterious origins of the people who built Göbekli Tepe.
It was built when mankind was still in the Stone Age.
They are not from our world. They are human-like, but they are clearly not humans.
Since we don't know who built Göbekli Tepe, then why did they build it? Do we have enough information from archaeological study to know the purpose of this sacred stone circle? Now, there is some indication from other stone circles around the world, which you're already familiar with, that it ties to lunar cycles, star cycles, astronomy, and beyond. There's also quite a bit of history connecting stone circles to ancient spiritual practices. So, what exactly was this mound of sacred stones, designed for? And do we have that kind of information from our archaeologists and perhaps other scientists? Let's have a listen.
We are excavating here now since 13 years. And what we understood with all this work, it's really a sanctuary site. It's not a normal settlement site. Here, mainly installations which have not been used for domestic life. It's clear they had been used for ritual purposes, for religious, for religion. Now, they are temples when we want to find a short word.
These stone rings are essentially the first temple created by humans on the planet. It's estimated to be 1,000 feet above the valley. The largest ring is 65 feet across, and it was in a location, currently it looks like a desert with the sandiness and the dryness. Now, according to a report in the Smithsonian Magazine, they indicated that this location would have been part of the Fertile Crescent, full of greenery, animal life, gently flowing rivers. There would have been birds in the sky, fruit and nut trees, barley, wild wheat fields. So this place really would have been significantly beautiful and captivating. Imagine for civilization what it would mean to have its first megalithic structure, a temple, and to have it atop of a valley that's full of food, wildlife, and beauty. Is that perhaps part of the inspiration for the Garden of Eden? Again, I'll take a look at that later in this episode. But next up, there's also a bit of a darker side to this temple. And next up, I'm going to take a quick look at the possibility that there was a skull cult. With every mystery, there's typically an element of death, and it's no different for the Göbekli Tepe. In fact, they have found skulls which seem to have been exhumed, I'm assuming post-mortem, and then defleshed, painted, and used for some kind of ritual purpose. This is what is known as a skull cult. Now, they have seen markings here they have seen nowhere else in the world yet. So let's have a quick listen to an overview of the skull cult.
Here, the bodies were buried, the skulls occasionally exhumed and stripped of any remaining flesh. These incisions and holes are a type of skull modification that hasn't been seen before in this region. It suggests that the skulls were strung up as decoration.
So these skulls were strung up for some kind of decorative purposes, but no one knows if it was for ritual purposes or special treatment for certain individuals, or whether or not it was a war statement. So was it used in some kind of shamanism? Was it used in some kind of threat to keep other hunters or perhaps other army type groups away? No one actually knows. What they do know is that there are very specific cuts on these skulls that are really unique to the area. Now, keep in mind earlier I showed you a map showing that there are various megalithic structures in that area. However, the skulls, particularly from 3 individuals, were marked in such a way that has archaeologists scratching their head. There is a team of archaeologists who works on this site now, and they're there 4 months out of the year in Turkey. What they've noticed on the skulls are particular defleshing techniques. This indicates that a lot of care went into whatever function they had for the skulls. But what that function is still remains a mystery. There are reasons why researchers have spent their lives looking for the Garden of Eden, and that includes emperors, leaders, mystics, religious people, secularists, academics. There's something captivating about the concept of the Garden of Eden. Now, there is evidence to suggest that Eden wasn't just a singular place, that in some mystic books, such as the Book of Enoch and others, refer to the Kingdom of Eden. So perhaps it belonged to a people group and was more than just a singular place with 2 trees inside of it. That being said, the legend is so strong and so rooted within our human psyche, there's really no one I've ever met who hasn't heard about the Garden of Eden. So what is its roots in our mind and in our culture? Is it an actual place? Well, some have suggested that if you look at the Garden of Eden as the source of fertility and abundance, then perhaps you could look to a place like Göbekli Tepe. So now I'm going to play some clips by an author and researcher, Andrew Collins, and hear what he has to say about the research into this location as a possible Garden of Eden.
And this was the beginning of agriculture, the beginning of farming, the beginning of a sedentary or settled lifestyle. And that was precisely in the area of Göbekli Tepe. Well, 68 strains of modern wheat, the DNA has been traced back to the domestication of wild grasses. So in other words, all the wheat that we eat, all the bread that we eat, generally comes from 68 different varieties, and they can all be traced back to one spot, which is this particular mountain range here. And that's only, I can't remember exactly, but I think it's about 15 to 20 miles away from Göbekli Tepe. In other words, Göbekli Tepe was exactly the area where agriculture began.
So there are a few things to point out about this region. We know it's part of the Fertile Crescent. We know it's in the approximate location of rumored Garden of Eden. We also know it's where a lot of our grains have originated from, and this is based on DNA evidence. In addition, there is a volcano in the region, and if you've watched many of my videos, you know that volcanic locations are very significant for a number of reasons. I'm not going to get into that in this video, but please be mindful of it in future videos. Let's hear what he has to say a little more in detail.
Is the fact that in 2007, Klaus Schmidt said, "This is the Garden of Eden." He also said of those who erected the stones that they were the watchmen of the period.
What Andrew Collins is saying via Klaus Schmidt is absolutely explosive, because he's indicating that the archaeologist has suggested that there's a non-human origin to the Göbekli Tepe. In addition, that the people who were around this ancient temple were also the watchers or the watchmen. Now, if you've read anything about the Book of Enoch, the story of Noah, or any other ancient religion or mystical books, you will know that the watchers are very key to the whole concept of intelligence from another location. And I don't want to get into it too much in detail because it's really its own video unto itself, and I want to focus on the mystery that is this tepe. But is it any coincidence that the archaeologist would make these 2 points, that perhaps this location is the Garden of Eden, or a potential origin for human culture and agriculture, and in addition, the people may have been watchers? This is very significant. The key question to all of this is, why would they cover up Göbekli Tepe? Why would they do it? What was the motivation? Were they protecting it? Were they conserving it? Was there some kind of conflict that ousted the original people groups in the area? Because keep in mind, there were no civilizations that lived directly around this tepe. So people who worshipped here came from other locations and perhaps stayed for a while, we don't know. But there's no evidence of long-term civilization around this tepe. So the mystery continues, and it grows and is compounded by the fact that our oldest temple on planet Earth was secretly covered up, scrubbed clean, almost as if it was an intelligence operation. Because if you're going to cover your tracks, what do? You remove your fingerprints. And essentially, that's what happened here, except for the monolithic stones themselves, 3 skulls, and a few other items that have since been discovered.
The other important thing here is that at the end of Göbekli Tepe, the site was not just abandoned or destroyed, it was deliberately covered up. And it's for this reason that the stones are so well preserved, because somebody came along and they just covered up. Why exactly they would have done that is a matter of debate. But that took place around 8000 BC.
I have introduced you to 5 different topics that indicate there is a strong mystery surrounding Göbekli Tepe that perhaps could indicate that there was an intelligence driving human civilization before our history books even reveal it. Do you want to know more about this subject? If so, hit the subscribe button, notification bell. I'm looking for a minimum of 50 likes on this video to continue the series. My name is Beth, and I will see you next time.